Well, welcome everybody on the DSO Secrets Facebook group. I'm Darin Acopan, partner and executive vice president of DEO. And today I am so excited to have the founder and CEO of Tab32, Kiltesh Patel. So Tab32 is an enterprise cloud dental software that a lot of you know of. And Kiltesh, you've been at this since 2013, so you're coming up on 10 years. How has this journey been for you?
It's an amazing journey. It's one of the most difficult problem in the industry that we are solving, and we feel that this is a backbone of any large enterprise or even a small business. So it's an amazing journey, lots of ups and downs, but eventually we are here, and I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. And I mean, over the last 10 years, when you started Tab32, there were only a handful of cloud-based practice management software companies out there. And today it's grown, right? And so you've seen the evolution of, I don't know if we're on version 3.0 or 4.0, but would love to see, what you saw coming into the industry and then where things are going today.
Right. So, when I started about 10 years ago, there were legacy technologies, basically, which are in premises or within the offices, servers sitting under the desk of provider. Mm-hmm. And they used to have practice management installed on it. And that's where it all started, that legacy softwares then they got hosted onto the cloud infrastructure, and then suddenly cloud was born. But what happened in that situation is that all the limitations that existed of legacy system that just got inherited, because you're just taking, instead of putting that machine under the desk, you're now putting it onto the cloud. So all the legacy still existed. So it wasn't really a solution. And then came the web 1.0 technology, which was just another 15 years old, which mostly an enterprise used to develop using HTML 1.0 and 2.0 and so on and so forth. It unfortunately doesn't scale as we would like to the truly cloud infrastructure, because it inherits all the limitations of scalability, which is what cloud addresses at the scale, so we could serve the technology at lower cost. And this technology is amazing, is amassing a lot of technology debt that one has to pay. Just like how you won't buy a 15 years old or 10 years old TV. Everybody, I mean, that's such a mundane decision. We always want something which is latest and greatest because we see next 5 years, right? Or next 10 years. So similarly, those technologies are also almost antiquated, I would say, at this point. Maybe next few years you will start seeing, unless they're heavily reinvested to entirely rewrite it, basically, is what it's going to be. And then there comes the Web 2.0, which is truly a cloud infrastructure. It's about 7 to 10 years old when Amazon and Google Cloud and Microsoft started putting those infrastructure, which can scale truly to the functions of the cloud, which allows us to provide that or provision and quick, reliable infrastructure across the board, which is obviously well secured, enterprise grade quality, obviously, encryption levels, or even providing the business associate compliances that are required for patient data, just has started in last 7-10 years. And that is where, Tab32 started building its own infrastructure and started putting together the practice management platform. But there is yet another tier, Darin, if you don't mind, I would love to expand on this a little bit while we are talking about Web.
I think this is great.
2.0.
Yes.
Right. So now that, we have reached to Web 2.0, and people are obviously now talking about Web 3.0, which is all greatest and Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatnot. It's an amazing time now. But from a business's perspective, what has happened in last few years is that there is another acronym called SaaS, SA, SaaS, software as a service, basically. And SaaS 1.0, basically, which is about 10, 15 years old now, you took anything that was built on a server, re-architected and built it on the cloud and hosted it on the cloud, and suddenly it worked. All the vendors, all the software suddenly started putting those infrastructure on SaaS infrastructure, which is what I call 1.0, which is like you would have 5, 6, 7 different vendors. You would have different APIs talking. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it would be a finger pointing, right? So that's still an ineffective and inefficient, obviously very costly, because suddenly you have quite a few vendors that are working in that SaaS 1.0 architecture, which is where, again, I would feel that now people are getting to a point where we are adopting a SaaS 2.0 model, which is basically you are taking an entire vertical service chain from top to bottom. In our context, if we put it in a way that acquiring or even patient thinking about the provider and making that appointment, to all the way down to money in the bank of provider, everything from radiology, business intelligence, your practice management, and anything else, that whole chain now served under one platform basically is what it is getting to, because that is where the true efficiency is. And people have started realizing it's not only a cost factor that you are saving 5 different vendor money, but it's most on top of it, it's transparent efficiencies. Instead of dealing with silos of 5 different black boxes, and you don't know which one is wrong and which one is not working, and suddenly you one day think you call this vendor or that vendor, right? So that's how I see the SaaS 2.0 progression, and it's upcoming, and it's going very fast. In fact, dental is not just the first. In fact, physicians market and all the ancillary healthcare markets have already had this vertical integrations done. A lot of companies have gone public and been very successful, and I see this is just a matter of time that it will happen in the dental industry as well. And coming back to a point of Tab32, I believe that if you put Web 2.0 and SaaS 2.0, that's our vision of providing the platform that is most critical to your business. I believe that if you think about buying a phone, you would not buy anything 5 years old. You would buy today's phone, right? Why would you not think about buying your practice management, which is primary backbone of your business? That why it is so important, and it's going to take you to your whatever the strategy, exit strategy, public strategy, whatever it is, right, of your business, and allow you to scale. So need that right set of technology.
I think that's a great segue. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think we're all sold going from the smartphone 5 years ago to the smartphone of today and tomorrow. For a lot of the audience, right? You and I both know, even full-size DSOs, they're still on Web 1.0. It's
Correct.
Fragmented, working with 10 or 15 different vendors that they can't pinpoint the source of an issue if one occurs. Conversions are a big headache. You and I both know that. Technology conversions. Talk the audience through, like, if I'm at 1 location, 10 locations, 100 locations today, walk me through what I should be thinking about, not necessarily for Tab32, but just in general. If I'm on a non-cloud-based platform today, and I know I need to make the transition, or I want to make the transition, what should I, as the practice manager or the owner, be thinking about? What is that top 5 things that I should be making sure that I ask the different vendors out there when I'm researching?
Right. So I believe the first and paramount question today is the strategy of business itself, which is what I mean by how are you planning to serve your patient? Is it a strategy of a geo-location, or is it a independent associate vendor strategy, right? Where you are getting more doctors into your roll-ups and then trying to scale up. So it really depends. Today, unfortunately, the technology, all of that exists out there, is not addressing that. You have to really meet backwards to implement such technologies, which is where we come up and say that it's customizable based on the business's strategy. Either you want a single patient database, multiple patient databases across each associate providers, right? And then how do you aggregate that data in a larger context to make more meaning at your regional levels, at your headquarter level or an executive level? These are different things that executives want to know versus a regionals want to know versus an office manager wants to know. So if you put all of those perspectives together, the data is paramount. How do you get the data out of those practice management, whatever it may be, right? And how do you make that decisions based on data insights readily available, not on the hindsight, hoping that you will have that data and hoping that you have met the production numbers, right? If you think from a data and larger insights perspective of how you want to organize your business, how do you see that scaling up? Because if you're in an immense acquisition mode and you're thinking that you want to add 20, 50 clinics in a year, you're basically asking for 50, 100 million growth, right? And you really need to have such an infrastructure to really address some of these needs, because 6 months of lag or even 3 months of lag in that data and you are in trouble. You are running in trouble, and now you need to really go find some financial engineering to really make the moves. So I guess biggest thing that I would suggest to everyone is think about this larger business strategy of where they see it. The second part to that is that basic infrastructural needs of a practice, like patients communication, right? Like interaction and engagement with patients, online booking, reputation management, either it be a provider-patient relationship, referral management, practice management, radiology, and then obviously all the billing related infrastructure like your clearing houses or attachment vendors and whatnot, or even the money in the bank from the credit card processors, right? Think how many vendors do you want to deal with? Do you want to go to multiple vendors to really address and see if you can find one technology that would really seamlessly work without having silos of black boxes that would occur, right? Because it's only on the hindsight you will discover those black boxes when something has happened, and then it's very hard to really turn it around. So I would think about all of those 5, 6 different things that you would need. You really need one platform for all of those infrastructure. So that's another thing that I would place on top or besides the data insights and data, which is under the platform strategy, I would call it. And then the last part, I would say that obviously you're building this infrastructure. How can you create more compliant mechanisms? Because you are adding more practices, but you also have to make sure that the quality of services, quality of care has been provided in consistent manner across, right? So now how do you really measure those aspects of the businesses? Now, quality is just one part, Darin. What I'm trying to say is quality also means how are you doing on your recalls? How are you doing on your new patient acquisition, right? So on and so forth, basically, which is underlying good, which is how you're obviously either generating new revenue or new production, I would say, or retaining your existing patient and making sure that you're building a strong foundation of revenue or production and then building new patients on top of it, right? So that's the third part that I would think is extremely important, that people should look and really parse into these technologies. And most importantly, can this take me to next 15, 20 years, right? Do not look at rear view and hope that since we have done better in rear view, it's going to take me forward. We know BlackBerry, a classic example. Rear view mirror syndrome is what happened to them, right? Saying, yeah, Apple is not going to take our business, and it just went spoof. So I feel like people should think those things, I guess, in that order.
That's great. That's great. Which leads me to my next question. A lot of the audience doesn't know all cloud isn't created equally. There's cloud hosted versus cloud based. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So cloud hosted is something which is basically you take your infrastructure or the server from your office and rent a space in a data center like Amazon or Google or whatever, and host the same infrastructure over, or same software, not even infrastructure, on the cloud, is basically cloud hosted. What entails those? All the legacy server technologies that exist in the office where you are installing the stuff, that is all your cloud hosted ones if you're going to put it on. On top of it, anything which is Web 1.0, which is built for HTML1, HTML2, really, it's again a hosted infrastructure. They were not really designed for cloud-based. Now, again, marketing could be a tricky thing where people might market, but idea would be that Web 1.0 again is a cloud-hosted infrastructure, and cloud. Truly a cloud-based infrastructure is what it is I'll give you an analogy that you have a strong foundation today, right? And you build a high-rise condo, okay? And you really don't have to worry then, because you have built a very strong foundation of scalability using the cloud infrastructure, that you can have 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms and any type of condos basically that you could really create out of it, right? That's what the infrastructure should help you to do and accomplish those things. Does that help, Darin, with your viewers to understand the difference between? It's a very subtle, but I think another thing, Darin, that I would say is that with Web 1.0 and legacy, you are inheriting, just from a financial perspective, a huge technology debt, which is the critical part here to understand for all your viewers here, that when you adopt such technologies, it's a kind of a black hole or a worm that just keeps on circling and spiraling. You just cannot get out of it. The cost escalates. You might not realize because it might be increasing 2% or 3%, but it's a compounded cost that you have to understand. Because this did not work, I had to buy 5 other things, right? If you put that apple to apple comparison, you will truly realize that what is happening is that it's really a big technology debt unless you really adopt some truly a cloud-based.
I think you said it so succinctly, Kiltesh, is you're going to pay a price sometime, but the best time to do the conversion is today. Because as you scale and grow and optimize, I don't think any of us in business want to go backwards. We're going to go forwards, and some to the tune of 5 to 10x of where we are today. That price point at that level is going to be much more costly, much more of a headache than if you get it done today.
Absolutely. So I believe that data migration is the biggest problem, and I'll tell you why it is. Okay, people need to understand this problem. That any technology product, it has nothing to do with dentistry. Okay, any technology product, when you do data migrations between 2 systems, the features, the functions, everything that maps in, there is always a loss of data, which we truly understand, right? Now, percentage of loss really depends on how much percentage. Is it 5% loss or 10% loss or 50% loss, right? So what I have observed, because we have done probably at this point 700 to 800 migrations of all kinds of different systems, and even not only practice management, but also more certainly the versions of different practice management systems, that what we have seen is that data loss is going to happen. We try to tell or share those information with our providers, but most important thing that one has to understand is that, let's say, I don't want to name any practice management, but let's say that we are not going to recover periodontal charts, for example, because it's encrypted with some private key that a vendor has and vendor will not share it, right? It's basically a hostage situation. More you stay, you are only in deeper trouble, right? Because how are you going to do? Today you have lost maybe 1,000 perio chart readings, but tomorrow in a year's time, it will be another 1,000, right? So it's basically a hostage situation. Do you want to stay to an hostage of certain aspects of this? And this is very specific, but there are quite few things that we can talk in that context. Do you want to stay hostage to that? or do you want to really grow your business and move forward with it, right? Assuming that there is going to be a loss, certain loss in that. And it's not a, if you think we have done so many migrations, Darin, you can overcome those problems. There are ways to mitigate those problems. How do you mitigate it? We help them and strategize them. This is how you can mitigate such problems. So in nutshell, yes, data and migration, as much as we would want to be seamless, there is a loss, and it really depends on which systems. Most of them, like Open Dental, Dentrix, EagleSoft, we have all figured out there is no issues. These are very outlier systems that are really, not very well kept, updated. Sometimes even founders have sold it to somebody else and not maintained it, right? That's where we see some of those problems. Does that help?
That's very helpful. That's very helpful. And I think that that's one of the reasons owners or practice managers decide not to move forward, is because they're comfortable knowing the risks that they're currently involved with on a day-to-day basis. But I think we all know that eventually you're going to have to convert to something else, which is a great segue into, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying it's a fold. How many folds you are willing to take that loss? Yes, today it's 1x, exactly. Tomorrow it's only going to become 2x, because Correct. That's what it is going to, right?
Correct.
And it is very unfortunate that our industry logs that data. I feel like I'm a person who really promotes a standard open data, which is what we can talk later in our data conversations if we get an opportunity today. But that's what we are promoting, open data standards. And idea would be that people cannot be held hostage to the data, and if we are truly making a meaning out of it, then we should all be open to it, right? So
absolutely. Anyways, speaking of being held hostage, cybersecurity, huge issue, becoming more and more relevant every day. We just had a couple of DEO members reach out to us that got their data hacked and encrypted and had to go through an IT security agency. Tab32 being cloud-based, you avoid that altogether. Can you talk through that?
Yes, absolutely. So let's look at the cause of the problem, right? One obviously is human, right? Which is basically passwords get compromised, email links get clinged because it's spoofed and whatnot, right? That's one part. Okay, that might not be avoidable part, because even though we are trained, we still can reduce the percentage of risk, but there is a risk associated with that. Second part is your systems. What happens is that with systems that are out there, all the legacy systems, Web 1.0, you download this Excels, or you have the database locally on your server, and a lot of things are happening on that machine or the server, and it's just one mistake that you make and click it, and your data gets locked, right? So that's the biggest trouble that you see today, with the malware, like ransomware. We often hear that, and you have nowhere to go from that perspective. Obviously, sometimes you have backup, you might be able to recover but you haven't really tested those backups in a while, so you don't even know if those will work or not, right? So it's a risk. With Tab32, what we do is basically everything is stored in a secured infrastructure. We use Google Cloud infrastructure, highly secured infrastructure across the board. And what it allows us to do is make sure that all the data is behind the grid locked, stored. On the rest, it is encrypted. In transmission, it is encrypted, right? So only vulnerability is your web browser. Even that, what we have taken tenfold precautions, and we are one of the first actually and pioneers in this, is that we have from the get-go integrated enterprise grade logins. What it means is that you do not want to create a vendor generated email ID and password. Those are not secured. Anyone can really hack those, right? So what we have done is we have done Azure integration, we have done Active Directory integration. These are all enterprise logins, or even Google's OAuth integration, right? What it allows you to do as an enterprise is to control one side of the infrastructure, which is, how do you really make sure that those passwords, those links are validated and it's behind the secured infrastructure beyond our even authorization. So in nutshell, Tab32 addresses this ransomware deep down in multiple layers, I would say. It's not just one layer, but idea is to keep your data safe, secured, encrypted, with almost none as a vulnerability issues or risk issues, risk mitigation issues. Only thing that you can happen is password compromising the password. But that too today is really easy. At an administrative enterprise level, you just ask them to reset that password. That's about it, right? So it really, really reduces the risk of getting compromised in a situations like ransomware. And even, think you had that system and ransomware happen to one of your data. All you do is shut down that system, reboot and restart and reset that system. You're good to go, right? You don't have to fall prey to anyone for that. Right? So that's what it will allow you to do, I guess, from
That's great.
Implementation and security perspective.
I appreciate that. So we're about the halfway mark, and I know you and I want to spend some time talking about the future of dentistry and how AI plays a role. So I would love to turn it over to you and get some insights from one of our industry's key opinion leaders.
So yeah, AI is super exciting. I feel that we are just barely scratching the surface, and there's just a lot to be done on the AI. But I believe that we need to take one step back before the AI, which is everyone needs to understand that AI functions on two things. One is what you feed, which is what the data is, what the quality of the data is. And second, what is the question that you are asking on that data? So it really depends on the type of the data that is being fed and the question that you are asking to the data, right? So let's understand this context and a concept rather than thinking that AI can address everything, right? It's not that. AI really needs to be based on data and what question you are asking or and how quality that data has, right? So from that perspective, if you think about it, we are far way to go because we have a lot of silos of system, Darin. One thing true at one place, at one system might not be true. So just to give you a little bit of analogy here, or maybe an example even, is think of sensors, right? So there are so many, maybe 50, 60 different types of sensors. Everyone has their own pixelated imaging solutions, and it works in a different filters and whatnot, right? So somebody using one type of sensors and somebody using another type of sensors, you can't just swoop in and say that AI is going to address all of those things, right? Like I said, it really depends on the data that is in the feed that you're building the AI model on, and then the questions that you're asking. So if your model is limited to a particular set of data, then it's only going to be biased, more and more biased as time progresses. And there are so many statistical theories around that, right? So what I think is today, there's a lot of excitement in AI. There's a lot to be done in an AI. But we are still starting, and we are at really, really onset. I feel like just at the tip of the beginning. And I feel like if I may, self-promote a little bit here, Darin, if you don't mind, is Tab32 is well positioned to address this AI, because what we have done is we have taken time to understand that data by building a platform that we understand your business runs, right? $100 million, $200 million business, or even a small business runs. We understand the context, nuances of your data. We are a solo platform or all-in-one platform, I would say, because we have radiology, aggregators of claims management and everything around that. So what it allows us to do is create a holistic understanding of data, and that allows us to build a very comprehensive AI models. And some of these things that you will start seeing towards the end of this year is pretty exciting stuff coming out of Tab32 R&D labs. And it's pretty amazing. Probably next few years as we make progress into the AI side of it.
Perfect. So
Hope that helps
it does.
viewers.
It does. For those that don't know Tab32 and they are working with different categories of vendors, what does Tab32 as an all-in-one replace? If you could just give some broad high-level strokes.
Yeah, sure. So Tab32 as a practice management, if we talk about, right, we will provide you entire patient communication, online booking, reputation management, obviously practice management system, radiology, entire radiology suite. So you're completely a cloud-based radiology and imaging system, entire claims management terminal. So you really don't, and there is a lot of nuances that goes into it, which is within the platform. So all of your claims management, appeals management processes is within Tab32. Attachment vendors that you might need to not need. So these are like almost I counted what 6, 7. We also have a data warehouse product for large enterprises. So we provide them an aggregated data across all the locations out of box within our data warehouse platform on top of Tab32's practice management, or even you can have siloed of practice management coming from different practice management stream coming into Tab32's data warehouse. So those services basically, entails about 5, 7 different vendors, if it makes sense, or if it helps your viewers to think through, right? Entire operational spectrum of vendors, 6, 7 different vendors or softwares, I would say, that you provide under one infrastructure.
So if I'm doing the math, Kiltesh, it's pretty apparent to me, even on the low end of 5 different vendors that you're able to replace, and I'm paying each of these 5 vendors an average of $200 a month, I'm pretty sure Tab32 is going to be less than $1,000 a month on average.
For sure. So, right. So ROI, if you calculate an ROI of about just 20 to 30 locations, ROI is right within 3 months of the platform, and you start saving on top of it, right? So it's very quick. And that is tier 1 we call. We have multiple tiers of ROI. When you start implementing Tab32, we believe that there is a truly efficiency play over here. So one efficiency metric that you're talking, ROI 1, is about technology cost, right? And then there is multiple ROIs, like for example, we are putting together a comprehensive ortho module onto the platform, orthodontist, right? So entire ortho suite can be run within the Tab32 platform. So that's the second level of the efficiencies that you can bring in, that because even solving a problem within practice management, you still have problems of surgery related softwares, ortho related softwares, or even periodontist related softwares, right? So how do you really bring that under the one tier? Now suddenly business has an opportunity to provide not only GP services, but scale to a multi-specialty, right? And under the one roof, one data, how do you really provide those services cohesively? Going back to our initial conversation of Starbucks experience, right? How do you give that wow experience, right? By understanding those data. And I know there's a long, short answer to your question.
No, that's great. And I love the Starbucks experience. I mean, that's how Dr. Ahmed at DECA created his experience. He wanted to be the Starbucks in dental, and I would say he pretty much accomplished that goal. Now, when I'm taking a look at, you said 20 to 30, that's the ROI for that number of locations. You do work with solo locations as well, correct? The Tab32 is for one location all the way up to X number of locations. What does that ROI look like for maybe those that have one location all the way up to maybe 5 locations? Because there are a lot of those in the DSO Secrets audience as well.
So ROI is there for even small businesses, right? Second, third month. What I'm trying to say is if you add 20 practices, the scale factor is a lot bigger, right? Gotcha. It's 20x, right? So it's the same factor for even SMB from that perspective.
Okay, perfect. And so what would you say, for those that are growing and growth oriented, unless you're in certain types of specialties, you're probably going to grow by acquisition. I would say the majority of your clients that are growing are doing it primarily through acquisition. There is that walking on eggshells feeling of, hey, for the newly acquired business, we're not going to make you convert your practice management software right away. Like, talk through that
Yeah,
situation.
so
That's very real for a lot of our audience.
So we have an entire strategy for that. What we do, Darin, is that let's say you have few practices on Tab's platform already working and all plays there, but let you acquire this practice and you come with not one, maybe 10 different practice management softwares now, from all legacy to even those Web 1.0 cloud technologies, right? What we have is a data warehouse platform that would connect to all these legacy systems, harmonize that data, which is what I was referring to, that if we get an opportunity to talk about open data standards, we have created that open data standards that would harmonize the data into one single aggregated customized database, and then allows them to transparently view the data at the managerial level or even at an executive level or regional levels. So these are silos or different practice managements that we connect to, bring that data, give them some time to really, understand, because management also needs a breather to understand that, hey, how am I doing at these practices? Because when the reality strikes, right, that now suddenly you are an owner, you are not looking at 30 days report, you are looking more frequently the reports that are coming in, what is your production on a day-to-day basis, right? And that's what we immediately help and really ease that out, give them some time to plan it around, because acquisition also happens 5 year, 10 year, 7 year. It's not like, you can't really plan because some deals has to happen, right? So that allows them, from our strategy perspective, to take some time, still get all the benefits of data and data insights from our platform, and then slowly transition into Tab32 platform. And we've been implementing successfully with a lot of legacy practice management, even the modern ones, web technologies as well.
Perfect. So talk me through a little bit about, the size of your team, the support I get. Say I'm ready as a practice owner or practice manager to give Tab32 a try, and then walk me through the timeline of what that looks like, just so that the audience can get a better idea.
Right. So basically, once you come on board Tab32, we generally have an automated flows. It's just like we need to talk to administrator or whoever it is. So that's generally 1 to 2 weeks when we can get into their systems, pull the data out in pre-live. We call it pre-live, which is, one version that we want them to look at their data, make sure that everything is in place. And then another week or 2 maximum, we then get them onboarded or make them go live, basically. So it's a pretty short cycle, succinct short cycle that happens within the space of anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, depending upon really how the prioritization and whatnot happens. And obviously, the connections and other things. And one of the things that we do, Darin, is when we get into our platform, we not only get their practice management, we get all of their imaging data as well. So you might have DEXIS or whatnot, right? We would get all of those imaging radiology data as well, which is huge. You can just imagine, those are terabytes of data that we're talking. And then we also get their documents and other things around. So it takes a little bit of time depending upon the size of data and whatnot, but it's mostly 2 to 6 weeks process before they go live. And obviously, it goes into our pipeline because it's really filled at the moment. So it's pretty exciting time for us, and we're trying to scale that up very rapidly. So,
got it. And so 2 to 6 weeks, yeah. It does. So 2 to 6 weeks is what I'm hearing. And then in the interim, while you're extracting the data in the beginning, I'm still on my old platform, my old practice management software. And then the cutover time, is there any drop in business?
We generally do it over no. So
after hours.
Saturday.
Okay.
Generally Saturday we pull the data, or maybe Friday evening we pull the data cutoff time, and we have all strategies even if we have a lag in data, we can still get you going on Monday, because sometimes radiology data is huge, right? You can't get it over the weekend. So then we have strategies to pull those in the segments that would make sure that your business continuity is maintained. And at the same time, a week following, the data would come in, and without having issues, the patients that you are going to see, you have all the data for that. So yeah, that's what it takes basically.
And within that 2 to 6 weeks, does that also include the training and support that I'm going to need to get the team bought into the new?
Oh, yes.
What does that look like?
Right. So the whole there is a whole onboarding group that will get engaged at an onset with a kickstart meeting or a kickoff meeting rather, and from that point on, they will meet 2 or 3 different project. One of them would be project manager, one of them would be technician and whatnot. Then they would meet the training team, and training team will walk over all the modules with them before they go live. And then obviously when they go live, on the day they go live and then couple of days following, our folks are online with them to help them hold their hand while they are using the system and getting acclimatized with the new platform. And generally what happens is that by the end of 3rd or 4th day, it's almost autopilot by that time, because they have gone through the whole appointment management, documentation, progress notes, and then they have also sent out the claims by then, right? So it's like they have seen that entire workflow happening, and then it then goes into the support. And we have a pretty huge team. I would say that we are one of the fastest growing in terms of number of people at this point. We've already crossed 125, if I'm not mistaken. So, and we have huge support team besides onboarding team and data migration team to help with all this aspects.
Wow. Congratulations. So that's 125 team members that you have supporting all of this.
It's a huge team, like I said, right? And it's pretty streamlined from the work perspective and the objective that each team has. Pretty efficient in that ways. And that's the reason, that sometimes the migration clinics is 2 to 6 weeks, new clinics is right away. We literally get them like on the day itself, as far as they can get the training schedule, session schedule, we just get them right away. It's like that skyrise condo, right? You just need to put a door and 4 walls, and it's pretty much automated walls. You just plug in the keys and you're ready to move it, right?
That's amazing. You're scaling so quickly. Do you know approximately how many locations are on Tab32 nowadays?
I believe between everything, practice management, data warehouses and everything, probably we will be in a ballpark of 1,000 plus at this point. More than 1,000. And it's fast growing, right? It's only last 3-4 years that we have been, and it's rapidly growing. So I would think that will double this year, or more than double this year.
Absolutely. Oh, I know a lot of the DEO members that use Tab32 are very happy with it. And these are the cream of the crop groups that you're catering to. So kudos to you for being able to deliver on that promise. Just from a range, price point wise, for those that aren't familiar, how does the pricing structure work? Don't have to give specific numbers, but at least a range would be super helpful.
Right. So it really depends on number of providers and locations, but it would start anywhere from $200-300 to all the way a couple $1,000 per location, how big you are, what features you want to use and what, right? Because you have to understand that this is, some people would need highly customized platform where they have very specific processes and workflows. We can customize those workflows, right? So you can think of us as a force.com platform, and you're building your whole CRM on top of it. That's what Tab32 is for practice management. It allows you to customize those aspects of it. So that's where probably price tier might increase, but it's that range that you would generally see.
Got it. And I know you initially, like everyone, built the platform for GPs. You talked a little bit about adding the ortho component. Are there any other specialties that you're bringing into the platform?
Yes, we will be coding for surgery as well, which is our target for end of this year. besides ortho. And endo is already there. We have few things to address, but almost everything is there. So those other two platforms are our next target. And ortho is going to be very comprehensive. If I may get one more minute of your
Yes, absolutely,
time,
please. This is your call.
Yeah.
Yep.
So ortho is something that we have truly understood the business of the way it functions versus how it is delivered. Really two different aspects. One being, how do you recognize your revenue based on milestones, based on whatever the strategy that a DSO or a practices are using, versus how you document and manage those patients clinically in terms of experiences, right? We've made sure we address this in a way that would address, a gap compliance, basically. So what happens is that a lot of this practice managements were built on cash-based system, and they really have difficulties, and there's then a lot of workarounds to make them gap compliant. And that is where, we took a step back and said, no, let's just make it so that it's an enterprise ready software, so you don't have to build 5 different, or you don't have to hire an analyst to then get it to a gap compliant, right? So that's another big tenet of the whole ortho module that we are putting it together. And same thing for surgery, which is, again, there are a bit subtle nuances that goes into surgery, which is what we do.
Got it. And by gap, you're meaning cash to accrual and professionalizing the business. And for those of you that don't know,
Exactly. You're absolutely right on. It's accrual, basically, that, when you're asking for a lot of money from either bank or private equity, you really need to be compliant to that, right? And meet those standards. So that's what I mean on this.
Absolutely. Because you and I both know there are some groups out there, fairly large size groups, that are running desperate platforms, right? One for the GP element, one for the ortho element. And it's gotta be crazy difficult as you're scaling up for the finance team or the CFO to be able to pull this all together, get the information they need over to their financial institutions in order to keep this afloat. So, I mean, this is phenomenal. So when do you think the ortho component's going to go live for Tab32?
End of this, this is Q2, right? So Q2, Q3, end of this quarter or early Q3 is when it goes live. We will be putting a lot of practices on that platform immediately. And surgery is slated for Q4, end of Q4.
Okay. Wow. So you'll have pretty much all of the big ones taken care of by the end of this year.
Yes. And so we're also sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, going forward into 2023, what's on the horizon for Tab32 and the team as far as development?
Well, right. So one of the things that, I'll speak into aspects of it. One of the things that we're putting together is a product roadmap, which is comprehensive, customizable platform that meets your business need, rather than business taking, pulling the hair from the other side. That is one of the primary goal of ours, and that entails many things among, like we talked about, gap compliance, one platform, addressing multiple operational business needs that, today requires multiple vendors, and then obviously AI coming into play as well, which is going to really revolutionize a lot of this aspects that we believe will truly change the way we see our patients and experiences around that. And also another big announcement that is on the horizon is Tab is coming with its own standalone imaging platform. So it's just around the corner now, and you can pull any imaging platform into Tab, any sensors into Tab. It's pretty much an open infrastructure and open architecture that can plug and play. And it's going to work across all practice management systems for the people who have want to migrate their imaging data or imaging x-rays and photos and whatnot to the cloud will be the solution for them. And one of the key component here is, there's just a lot of infrastructure necessity that provider has to struggle with today, and keeping that for 7 years for compliance aspect can be a story of yesterday with that release, and really let us handle those and help them get compliant rather than they trying to manage those. So that's just around the corner, a big news coming, most likely before the DEO summit.
Absolutely, which we're excited to see you speak at. So to recap, by the end of this year, you'll have all the big specialties taken care of on one platform. And then going into 2023, which is exciting, is you're saying that if I'm the owner of one location or a group or a full-fledged DSO, you and your team are going to work with me to roadmap out where I am today, where I want to be, and appropriately build out the infrastructure to help me get there, with an imaging component on top of that. So really it is going to be a one-stop shopping experience with Tab32 is what you're looking for.
Absolutely. It's going to be a one-stop shop, and we will be a platform to run the dental business. That's how it is. It's a backbone, and there cannot be any two means to really address what it needs to be done at an enterprise level, or if you're planning to scale your practices or grow your practices even within that scope.
And this will be on your 10th year anniversary, so that's exciting.
It's pretty exciting. It's an amazing journey. Like I was mentioning it to you before this call, that it was one of the most difficult decisions that we made. Vision. And I didn't get an opportunity to talk about the vision, but the tenets or the foundation was to really create the data insights, better care delivery. How do you deliver the care better, right? With better understanding. Unless you don't have data, you can't really do that. And the third thing is then patient engagement, patient experiences and patient engagement across the board. I'm not talking about communication, right? Like a software. I'm talking about an engagement that creates an experiences around the data, right? And if you put data experiences and care delivery models, 10 years ago, I just came up at a full point where, how do I address this? And the biggest thing that was missing was the data. It did not exist. It sat under the desk of the provider. And I really wanted to democratize that whole data to a standardized form, so that we can really augment a better care, better models, better delivery, better experiences. And getting to that point at 10th anniversary is just amazing.
It is. So in the last couple of minutes that we have left, obviously you're going to be there at the DEO Summit, June 9th through the 11th in Scottsdale at the Phoenician. We're looking forward to hosting you there. We're going to have you at some of our private member events behind the scenes as well, so we're excited. Anything else you want the audience to know while we have this last couple of minutes together, Kiltesh?
Well, so we've talked about almost all the aspects of it, but if I were to summarize this, right, thinking about practice management, think not in terms of replacement, think in terms of business strategy, what you're trying to accomplish. Just because somebody like me is selling practice management doesn't mean that you need to buy a practice management. What it means basically is what you should be thinking from your perspective is, why are you making that decision? Is it related to data? Is it addressing an ROI? Is it addressing a single infrastructure? What are you trying to accomplish? And if it meets those criteria, then make those changes. It just goes a lot easier and smoother. And if you're thinking of us as a platform, I would want you to think at the very minimum is that you will have 5 different vendors consolidated into one-stop shop solution, creating an efficiency without any black box or silos of system, and transparency. And and really helping you create that efficiency at the ground level that then you can just scale either your one practice or two practice or multiple practices.
Perfect. And so if I'm on this call as an audience member and I want to reach out to Tab32, who on your team should we direct them to? And then we'll make sure to add that information to the recording.
Right. So we have our sales team. We have 1-800 numbers as well. So we'll provide you with those information as well as the email IDs that you can get started. Basically is one email ID that I can remember top of my mind is get started at tab32.com. And then there's a whole sales team that is waiting. Either you are an enterprise or a SMB side of. We'll help with whatever or however you come through either our website www.tab32.com as well.
Perfect. And this is on DSO Secrets. It's going to live here forever. And so Kiltesh, on that note, I just thank you so much for your time today and appreciate getting to know you and seeing the growth you've had over the last 9 years, soon to be 10 and growing. Again, thank you so much. We're looking forward to seeing you at the DEO Summit in June in Scottsdale. But again, appreciate your time and love what you're doing at Tab32 with you and the team.
Well, so thank you so much, Darin, and the entire DEO group. You guys have been, amazing leaders in the space, and I've seen some amazing stuff at your events, which are really unseen, I would say, at other events, if I may. So if it's not appropriate, but I would say definitely that, it's been amazing team that you guys have. Thank you so much for an opportunity, and thank you everyone who's listening to this webinar. Appreciate this opportunity to give us a voice and an opportunity.
Thank you so much. All right, we will see you all on DSO Secrets Facebook page, and again, see you at the summit, Kiltesh. Take care.
Thank you, Darin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.